Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.
I'm Steve Orme, the Midlands editor of the British Theatre Guide. Mike Bartlett's play, King Charles III, is going on its first tour. Robert Powell has taken over from Tim Pigott-Smith, who played the title role at the Almeida and in the West End. I spoke to 71-year-old Robert Powell at Birmingham Rep, where the tour started. He speaks about King Charles being the hardest job he's ever done, how Jesus of Nazareth changed his life, the prospect of working with Jasper Carrott again, and the problems of a wet weekday in Wolverhampton. But first, I asked him what appealed to him about King Charles.
It's a good part, as simple as that. I was sent the script, read it. I knew of its existence, obviously, because Tim Pigott-Smith was a great friend of mine. We played it at the Almeida. And they sent it to me, and it's a great part. That's a simple reason.
Presumably playing someone so well known, as far as the public's concerned, brings its own individual challenges. Would you say so?
It does. The interesting thing is because it's not just Charles, of course. There's Catherine and William and Harry are also in the play. So there are other members of the royal family, and Camilla. And we don't do impersonations. Let's put it like that. This is not a. We nod to it. I just every now and again. Well, I use the physical side of Charles, his little tics, the playing with the signet ring, that kind of thing. I use to let the audience in on the fact that we know that this is Charles and it's not, but without doing funny voices and things like that.
Did you have to do extensive research into it?
No, none. No, I mean, I know Charles. We've met socially many times. We're members of the same club, in fact, the Saints and Sinners Club. And also I work as an ambassador for the Prince's Trust, so we are familiar with each other. When I say that, I mean he's not a friend, but he knows who I am, and socially we chat. Let's put it like that.
So, what does Mike Bartlett, the playwright, put into the character of Charles, which you enjoy playing?
Well, what he puts into the character, it's not necessarily that I enjoy playing any particular part of it. I enjoy the whole, because the character is drawn so roundly. Essentially, I have to really try and describe very briefly the plot. It's about Charles's ascension to the throne after the death of his mother. And he is, after waiting so long to actually ascend the throne, in our story, he's not that keen. I mean, he is, but he's nervous about it. He doesn't really feel he's got the wherewithal to do it. And he wants to make his mark in some way. And one of the marks he tries to make is that there is a bill just about to go through Parliament, which is about the freedom of the press, where the government is trying to really clamp down on it very, very severely. And bizarrely, you would think, as is expressed in the play by other people, you would think that Charles would be all for it, clamping down on the freedom of the press after what he went through and what he's been through. But it's exactly the opposite. Charles is an absolute idealist, and he feels that government has to be called into account, and without the freedom of the press, it won't be. So it would be easier to govern as corrupt than bother being held onto account, which is a line from the play. And it's this idealism and this belief that he is doing right that pushes him very gradually into a position where he can't back down, and unfortunately creates a huge constitutional problem. And that's really the story of the play. I'm not going to go exactly how we resolve the problem, because that's the exciting bit at the end. But that is essentially the story, and it makes Charles a very, very complex character, because he's many things, and it's just great fun to play. I mean, it's fun. It's the hardest job I've ever done, and I said that to somebody the other day, and they said, how long have you been doing it? And I said, well, I've been actually acting for 50 years, and I've not done everything. I mean, I even played King Lear, but I was only 18 at the time at school. But I've played Hamlet, but this is harder than all of them. It's extraordinarily emotionally tiring. It's not just the physical thing of being on stage for a not inconsiderable time, but it is just emotionally really tiring. So it's a tough call. Not much fun involved, may I say.
Right.
Yet.
So what do you bring to the part that maybe Tim Pigott-Smith didn't?
All actors are different. I mean, this is a great thing. I can't say. I didn't see Tim play it. I always get surprised when actors express concern about playing a part that somebody else has played. You know, they get nervous about it, about comparisons, and you go, this is utter nonsense. I mean, if actors actually genuinely felt that, they'd never play anything, because everything has been played by somebody else apart from a brand new play. And the person who plays Charles next will be saying he's following Tim Pigott-Smith and Robert Powell. How can he do that? Well, I'll tell you how he can do it. He can do it because it's him. When you take on a role, that role becomes you. And there is absolutely, I mean, I'm assured, there are no comparisons made, but I'm assured by the director and the writer and everybody who saw the other production that this production is totally different. Not better, not worse, but totally different. And it's different because we have a different cast. And the different cast, we all bring our own stuff, if you like. And Tim will have brought his stuff. He's still doing it. He's off to Broadway. I think it may have gone already, but very soon, certainly. And then when we finish this tour, which just before Christmas next spring, we're taking it to Australia. But this production will go to Australia with me.
You've been quoted as saying that you've always been attracted to difficult work. That must have been the case when you played Hercule Poirot last year.
No. Oddly enough, I mean, bizarrely, Poirot is one of the easiest parts I've ever done. That's not difficult at all. Because emotionally you don't get stretched in that, and it's sometimes the parts with accents or limps or false noses are the easiest things to do. I mean, it's like falling off a log for a professional actor. Poirot was very straightforward, but I am attracted to. I think I may have told this story before, but Steve Redgrave is a mate, and. I remember when, I think it was his third Olympic, I can't remember whether it was Atlanta or somewhere like that, when he stepped out of the boat and he said, if you ever see me get back in a boat again, shoot me. And of course he went on to do 2 more Olympic Games. Well, I'm a bit like that. I did, 3 years ago, I did Geoffrey Bernard is Unwell, which is a 2.5-hour monologue with vague interruptions, but it's 2.5 hour on your own, on stage, talking to the audience. And I mean, it was a huge success, but I did say it took me nearly 5 months to learn, apart from anything else. But I did say to my agent at the time, if you ever see me, even think about doing something like this again, then just remind me. And of course, the problem is, prior to finishing Poirot, which was last June, or post that, I've hardly worked at all. But I've turned down, I think, about 7 or 8 plays that came my way. And then came Charles III. And half of me didn't want to be asked to do it. Because having been asked, I could not say no. You can't. It's the same story with playing Jesus. I didn't want to do that at all. And no ambition to play Christ in that film. But having been asked, it was impossible to say no. You can't, because that is an admission of defeat. And then of course once you're in it, and it's fine. But yeah, it's tough.
But when you took on the role of Jesus of Nazareth, did you realise that it would be such a life changer?
No, I didn't, to be honest with you. I thought it might be, but in the wrong way, which is one of the reasons why I hesitated before I said yes to doing it. I didn't actually accept the role immediately. I prevaricated for a good week. Because an actor's it's a really strange profession. When you take a job on, you want the ambition. My definition of ambition is something you can never achieve. An achievable ambition is pointless. So you set yourself a target as an ambition that you can't do. And that is, whenever you take on a role, ambition is to reach the absolute peak, the pinnacle with that part, and be the best. Well, you can't do that, obviously. I mean, every now and again you get sort of close-ish, but I mean that's, you know. But you can't play Jesus. Nobody can play Jesus. You can't win. Let's put it like that. It is an unplayable part. The most you can hope for is to get away with it. Now, that's not really enough to feed any actor's ego. It just doesn't work. To get away with it, I don't want to play parts like that. I want to actually, you know, really hit the heights. So I didn't want to do it. I said I'd do it, and we did it, and we were astonished. We found a way of doing it, and it was almost accidental. Or maybe it wasn't, but we filmed. I mean, not many people knows. We actually filmed for about 2 weeks. And Franco and I then sat down and looked at the rushes of the 2 weeks that we'd done. I think it was the desert, 40 days, 40 nights stuff that we did, amongst other stuff. And we looked at it and it didn't work. And it didn't work because what we discussed before we started that we were going to try and not only play Christ, the divine Christ, but also the human Christ as well. It doesn't work. The moment you play the human Christ, he ceases to be divine. So no actor can do it. So what we devised by accident was to let the audience do the work for me. And by doing nothing, by just providing the face, the voice, the shape of Christ, and the energy of Christ, but by not making it idiosyncratic in any way, in other words, not imprinting my own personality on it, which you do on any other part is taken from you. This is the one part you can't do that. So by not doing that, I ended up with getting tens of thousands of letters saying, it is exactly how I imagined my Christ to be. And the audience had done the work. By presenting them with a blank canvas, they imagined their own Christ. And I could, if I'd been clever and done lots of tricks and, vocal tricks or idiosyncrasies, then for everybody who said, oh, that's a really good performance, I'd get 20 saying that's not my Christ, So you had to find something that suited everybody. And that I think, was our achievement.
Do people still associate you with that role even all these years later?
40 years later, yes, they do.
And you have no regrets about doing it now? No.
I think I resented it after about 3 years after I'd done it. I think I got bored with people making jokes and stuff. But to be honest with you, to have a piece of work I did 40 years ago, to have it remembered now, is immensely flattering. So I'm actually, the longer it goes on, the more flattered I get.
Did it stop you getting any other work after that? Were people still associating you with Jesus of Nazareth? I
don't think it did. I think the only area where, if I'd had the same success with any other part, then I would have had a much more fruitful time in America. You can imagine doing a television series that reached 500 million people. You'd have been, a superstar. But because it was that particular part, and because it's a particular look, it was difficult, I think, for American. Well, it's utterly typical of, I've got to say, of the general short-sightedness of the American approach to casting. And there's absolutely no bitterness in there at all, because, to be honest with you, I did go over. I spent some time in LA, and I did do 2 or 3 films there, and I hated it. I hated Los Angeles. I couldn't cope at all. I found it oppressive, and I hated being surrounded by only people in my own profession. I here in England, where I've lived now, well, all my life. A lot of my friends are nothing to do with my profession. There are other things. Lots of sportsmen, I have to say, because I'm addicted to sport. So I have lots of cricketers, and not that many footballers, but lots of cricketers who are mates. And I couldn't have coped with that in LA. It just... So I don't know. I'm rambling on a bit here, but I know, you were talking about the success of did it change my career? Well, it did, because it made me so well known that at least the name was well known. And in fact, I went on immediately afterwards. I went on to do a film in Italy, but it was an extraordinary piece of work that I had to do. And then work came flooding in from all around the world. I spent the 80s mostly. I did a little bit of theatre, but not very much. But I spent most of the 80s away. I was in Germany, Australia, South America, just about everywhere in the world. I made 20 films that were interesting to me, not terribly commercial in universal terms, but I won a couple of fairly prestigious awards, so that was for films that nobody's ever heard of. But so it doesn't worry me. I've got the award. Not many actors get to win Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival, for example, and I got that for a really weird film directed by a friend of mine, Powell, and it was a wonderful film. I loved it, but I don't think anybody ever saw it.
More recently, you spent, I think it was 6 years on Holby City as Mark Williams, and that seems, for you, rather a long time to be in one particular part.
Well, I've got there's a nice little story behind that too. My agent rang and she said the BBC had been on, and they would like me to go into Holby City. Now, I'd never seen Holby City. I didn't know I knew what it was, but I'd never seen it. It's not my cup of tea at all. So initially I said, oh, God, what, to play a surgeon or a doctor or whatever? And she said, no, they want you to play a nurse. Now, at that moment, my eyes lit up, because I thought, now that is interesting, because that is not what anybody would expect me to be playing. They would always expect me to be playing the intellectual, brain surgeon or whatever. So suddenly I was interested. And then I said, well, what's the deal? And she said, well, the first contract is for a year. And I said, what? I said, a year? I've never done anything for a year. Anything. I think the most longest, well, Jesus of Nazareth took 9 months to make. And I had worked in theatre, but I think even then I'd not done a 6-month run of anything. I'd only done 3 months or 4 months. So I said, no, I don't want to do that. Anyway, I thought about it, and they sent me the scripts, and it was a wonderful outline. It was only about 6 lines of outline for the character, but I recognised something there that was put him apart from your normal nurse. And so I said yes. And I enjoyed myself so much that I stayed there for 6 years. I had so much fun. I created, with the help of the writers, but we had a really great character going there. He was just the flakiest, sadist, rogue, if you like, but again with an absolute understanding of black and white. He didn't deal in grey at all. So he was a bit like Charles, and or Richard Hannay. So I had a great time, and then it just so happened that around they started to change. I had a friend of mine was the executive producer. I mean, he joined after I was in the show, but it was very nice having a producer as my friend, because it meant that we could talk to each other quite a lot. And then he resigned, and somebody else came in, and I suddenly felt a sea change happening in Holby, and it was one I didn't like, because we had always been very proud of the fact that we did grown-up stories. And the main thing was the story, and underlying that were all the interrelationships between the doctors and the nurses and all that kind of thing. And they just tilted it the other way, and it suddenly became a show about who's bonking who. And I decided it was time to go. It was also moving into melodrama, and melodrama is not my cup of tea, and because it's so difficult to do well. And if you can't do it well, then it just becomes really... Well, I can see it evident in soap opera, which is melodramatic, and the very good actors get away with it. But it's a tough call. I'll say no more about that. But anyway, so yes, I had a great time in Holby, and I have absolutely no regrets about that at all. And I made some lovely friends as well, and I enjoyed their company.
So when you left there, were you of the mind to go back into theatre, or...?
No, not at all. I have absolutely... But everybody asks this about which do you prefer, because I've been doing theatre now. No, apart from the 6 years in Holby, if we take the 21st century, let's take the 15 years. Apart from the 6 years in Holby, in the other 9 years I've been in theatre. And it's not from choice. Well, it is, obviously. I chose to do it. But it's from lack of choice. Because the television stuff that was coming my way, it was not interesting. And the theatre parts were. They were really interesting to do. But there's no question about it. I mean, if you ask me now if I could write the next 5 years of my life, it probably wouldn't contain very much theatre. I would love to get a couple of really good television series and do those. It's much easier, apart from anything else. Infinitely easier than theatre. Theatre's such hard work. It really is.
But, for instance, Holby City, you're on set for, what was it, virtually 12 hours a day, weren't you?
Yeah, 11 hours a day. Yes, but it doesn't feel... The stress is not the same. Theatre is pretty stressful because it sits there. You know, people say, you're just working for 2.5, 3 hours at night. You're not. The moment you wake up in the morning, it's there. And your whole day is building towards it. It's the conservation of energy during that day. So you have to be careful not to do too many energetic things, because you're going to pump out between 7:30 and 10. You're going to pump out, in terms of... energy, what most people do in a full 8-9 hour day. But certainly you are, there's no question about it, because you did, but it's just very much more condensed. So it is hard work.
And TV, I presume you can retake things, and you're not on the set the whole time.
Television is, I can get criticised for saying television is easy, but it is if you know what you're doing. Let's put it like that. You know, and I think that after all these years, I know what I'm doing in television. It's a medium that holds no frightening things for me at all. Theatre constantly does. Stepping out in front of 800 people every night in a park that is just so breathtakingly huge as King Charles. There will come a point when I'll start to enjoy it. I'm not at the moment, because we've only done 4 shows in front of an audience. But when I've done 15 shows in front of an audience, I'll start to relax and allow allow myself to play with it. At the moment, I'm thinking about it too much. But hey.
We know you these days as a serious actor, but of course you have done comedy, particularly with Jasper Carrott. Any plans to go back to that?
No, I don't think so. Well, no, having said that, I started out as a character actor when I was in rep. I did all the sort of, I played Doolittle in Pygmalion and things like that. I played all the character parts. And it was only accidental when I became a TV star, as they put it, that I think probably I'd done 3 Wednesday plays, and the 3 Wednesday plays were one was London Thug, and the next one was a Norfolk farm boy, and the third one was a hippie. So they were all very much character stuff. They weren't very straightforward. And then I got Doomwatch, and of course suddenly I got slotted into playing heroes, which I did for a while. But I'd always done comedy. Comedy to me is the essence of what I bring or hope to bring to everything I play. And this is a problem, of course, playing Christ. You can't use comedy. There are no jokes in there, and you can't use irony. And all these are weapons that, as an actor, I use all the time. I even get a few laughs at Charles. Not many, but but some. But yeah, and Jasper. Yes, we just literally. I kind of got inspired. For years I've been banging on about trying to put some stuff together that I wanted to produce, and some ideas for television series. And then you get very disappointed, and you get turned down. And I lose the energy and the interest, and I think, well, I'll just do other people's stuff. But we came up with an idea for a television series. Now, Jasper and I may or may not work together again. I think it would be nice if we did. It's not inconceivable. But I'm putting together, or trying to put together, a series about 2 guys in. Obviously older guys, and we're just in the throes now of getting our first writing. Well, I'm not doing the writing; I haven't got time. But with any luck, this may work. It's a nice conceit. Let's put it like that. It's a nice idea. I've had it for years, so I think it's a nice idea. I'm not going to say any more.
Okay, so after you've finished here at Birmingham Rep, you're taking King Charles III on tour. Does touring still hold an appeal to you as you get older?
None whatsoever. No, boy, touring's terrible. The only time it's fun is actually, it may turn out to be fun on this one. I don't know. The cast they're lovely, and they seem very jolly, and they all at the moment are up for it. But whether or not they will be in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time, I don't know. The only time that touring has ever appealed to me was when I've done, how many now? 1, 2, 3 tours with a very old friend of mine, Lisa Goddard. And Lisa and I get on very well, and we laugh a lot together, and we use touring to find out about the country. So, the pair of us, she doesn't mind doing the driving, and I don't mind doing the navigating. And when we're on tour, we go and see castles and art galleries, and go and have a pub lunch somewhere in the country, or things like that. As long as one is back to digs, or, well, not digs for me, hotel by around 4:30, so I don't sleep, but just get my head in the mode to go to work. Then, so that is one aspect of touring. But the last few tours I've done, it is desperately lonely. That's the straight answer. I mean, when you're sitting in a hotel, and I'm not bringing Wolverhampton down particularly. I choose this one because it just was an image, and it was the time of the year we were there. But sitting in a hotel in Wolverhampton in February when it's raining outside, and you get up and you go down and have some breakfast, and then I go back to my room and I sit on my own in the room until 6 o'clock, and then I can work and I can write and do all this kind of thing, but you're still on your own. And then grab your umbrella and walk over to the theatre. And the only time I get social is immediately afterwards if I can persuade somebody to go to the pub, which I usually can.
Yeah. You've been married for nearly 40 years, is it?
It was 40 years last Sunday.
Congratulations.
Not last Sunday, Sunday before.
So,
or Saturday.
How important is a stable relationship behind you?
Everything. My family is the centre of my universe. Well, there are three things. People said, "What are your three priorities?" And I said, "Well, they're family, work, and sport." And I said, "And please don't ask me to put them in any order." Because it can change depending on who's playing who and what work I'm doing. And it is essentially family. To be honest, it really is, as I say, the centre of my life, and it provides me with stability. I love going home. I've got a very, very lovely house, and when I'm home, I become a hermit because I don't see any point in going anywhere else because I've got a nice garden and it just is so much fun. And dogs, which I take on Hampstead Heath every day, where my dogs and I are out there, and I don't take an iPod or anything like that with me. I concentrate on them, and I talk to them, and I talk to myself, of course, as you would. But it's a great hour for starting the day and just putting, a few thoughts into place, and you can just meditate a bit. And my dogs make me laugh so much, and I miss them very much. I now have a grandson. I'm now a granddad for the first time. He's born, I think, 3 weeks ago, and 20th of August, and he's absolutely divine, and I don't see enough of him, which is a great shame.
So, what's in store for you after King Charles III?
Well, it's Australia. Next April, I have Christmas off and probably a bit of January off, and then I think we're probably taking this back on the road again to warm it up, to take it over to Australia, and then that will finish at the end of, beginning of May next year. And then I've never really planned this far ahead, ever. But then I've been asked if I would like to do, and it'll be such a nice change, to do, relatively speaking, the Aigbourn next autumn, in a year's time. And I've kind of agreed to do that. But just because it'll be such a break from doing something like this, where, relatively speaking, will seem like an absolute breeze compared, It won't. It's difficult in a different way, but it'll seem like a breeze.
King Charles III tours to Richmond, Newcastle, Nottingham, Milton Keynes, Cambridge, Canterbury, Malvern, Guildford, Edinburgh, Bath, Chichester and Plymouth until December the 12th.
You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.